Thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. This month we are hosting a roundtable discussion, and joining me are City Councilors Greg Neitzert, Rick Kiley, and Pat Starr. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to talk about. I've got lots of sheets in front of me today, so we've got lots of topics. But first off, let's talk about the $654 million proposed budget. Who would like to start first, and what are some of the big projects that we're going to see coming up in the next year?
Sure, I'll just briefly kick us off. We're already in budget hearings, and we will hear from additional departments throughout the month of August. This budget, for which is set to go into effect on January 1st of 2022 through December of 2022, will be approved by September 21st of this year. So it's as you mentioned, $654 million budget. I believe it's the highest budget that we have put into place, at least for me as an individual councilor. It is. It's about $5 million below what we project our revenues are going to be. Revenues are coming in projected at about $660 million. Much of that is going to go into water reclamation, water purification, public safety, as well as streets. That's the other big one. And we can talk about those individually as we go into it, but 72% of it is just really for our basics, public safety especially.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about what some of the, it's always road construction. They say it's road construction is always happening when the weather is warm in South Dakota, and that's progress. As the city grows, we're going to see more of that. What are some of the big projects that we can see this year and next year?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to talk about, and the people expect, at least the residents of the city of Sioux Falls, is public safety. We're adding 5 new FTEs, a new sergeant, a couple patrol officers, an animal control officer, and that we're going to continue to make sure that citizens feel safe in our community. It's one of the things that we expect, that and orange cones.
Sure, exactly, and don't run over the orange cones.
And kind of pivoting from the orange cones, the big flagship project starting next year is going to be the 41st Street interchange at I-29. It's going to be diverging diamond interchange, which I believe will be the second one in the state of South Dakota. It'll be the first one for the city of Sioux Falls, and they're going to reconstruct and widen from Marion Road all the way down to Louise, and that's going to be, I think, a 2-year project. It's going to be a massive project. You're going to see a lot of changes, and there's going to be a lot of disruption, but we need to do it. It's incredibly busy, and it's going to be an exciting project. Are we
going to have to watch a YouTube video to figure out how to maneuver that new intersection? Because I've heard it can be complicated, but it's a traffic mover.
Actually, you'll be able to drive through it and negotiate it and not even realize what's happened until you've already gone through it. My wife and I have driven through a couple of them in other parts of the country, and it just automatically moves you from one side over to the other and then back again. And especially if you have no intention of making turns, you've gone through it and you don't even notice it. But what is nice about this particular project is it's going to take out the conflict involving left turning vehicles, because it diverts the traffic from the right side over to the left side. So for instance, everybody that wants to go southbound on Interstate 29, they can just go directly into a left-hand turn because they won't have any oncoming traffic to contest with. But I think it's going to be a little simpler than what a lot of people think it's going to be.
Sure. And those streets there will be closed. Is it Shirley and Carolyn, or just one of them?
Both. Yep, at different lengths of how far back that they'll be shut. But it's like the first time you go through a roundabout. You love them, and I think people have come to do that, but that first time gets your attention, and you're like, and I think Councilor Kiley is exactly right, that you'll realize that it goes really fast and you won't realize it. And it's the traffic engineers have just been bragging for years about how efficient this is that moves traffic. I guess there'll be some nerves at first, but like everything else that's new, as we try it, we accomplish it. It's a great partnership project that we've been talking about, at least behind the scenes, for the whole time I've been on the council, at least for the last 5 years, with the Urbanized Development Council and doing the studies that it took to move that. But what people will really see is that entire 229 corridor is going to be renewed. We struggled through 2 years of 26th and Southeastern, and we survived, and now it's an amazing way to, you don't have to wait for trains anymore, you don't have to do that. Right. You'll see this with this intersection, and then you'll continue to see it all the way through that corridor, going to 10th Street next and 229. The Cliff Avenue in Minnesota interchanges are following or in that design process too. So the cones are not going away, and my friends say to me all the time, you know, oh, all the traffic and all the construction, and I just say, you're welcome. Because that's what our folks are telling us that they want, is they want us to fill potholes, they want us to take care of the basic services of government.
Well, when you're waiting there, when people are trying to go north on 29, and there's just a line that backs way up. So I think the traffic, there'll be some growing pains for a while, but I think it will be welcomed when we're not all sitting in
it most definitely will.
Traffic.
It's moving traffic and street conditions. That's the biggest complaint that we receive as counselors, or one of the biggest complaints, and that's why 19% of this budget is dedicated for that purpose, basically.
Let's we've touched on public safety and construction. Let's talk about parks and recreation. You know, is this area important not only, you know, for the people who are living here, but also for recruitment of people, to get people to move here for quality of life issues? Councilor Neitzer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a big champion of the bike trails, and our surveys tell us that bike trails are at the top of their list, among many other amenities. And people tell us all the time the reason they move here is for the quality of life and the second-to-none park system. And we're expanding the Cherry Creek bike trail on the west side right now, doing a 1.5-mile segment. And in our 5-year plan, we're looking at funding the extension of that. And then on the east side too, over at Lean Park, going out to Great Bear, and trying to look at what we can do for extensions throughout the city and try to get connections for people as the city grows south and north. So all of that is incredibly important. It's a huge quality of life issue.
Well, our outdoor season seems to get shorter and shorter every year, so we need to have those amenities that people are looking for. Replacing the pools that's our next quality of life bond that we'll be looking at in 2023. That's part of our 5-year capital program, so that we have that ability as a city to, you can't do the things that we're accomplishing without at least a 5-year plan, and making sure that we are looking into the future and how to do that. And replacing pools that are at 40 and 50 years are at that point where that will be the next large bond issue that the administration's bringing forward. You know, we'll be in that $40 million range. A pool is anywhere between $12 to $15 million. So it's a large capital investment that we need to plan for, and that will be one of the things in the parks. We're making, we talk about traffic, we're making some large investments into continuing into our park system. Whether it's taking a look at how do you get to the Arc of Dreams. Right now it's difficult to get to that part of town. You're crossing some private property, some public property, and making some improvements in our downtown and getting to those amenities. So we have the amenity and the desire for people to take a look at to visit the sculpture, but they can't get there or in a safe way to get them there. So to include that as part of it in that entire area, the development that's happening, we see that $400 million plus investment in our downtown over just the next couple of years, and it's going to have a significant change to our community. And
you're absolutely correct in stating that it is a quality of life issue, and it is something that each and every individual in the community of Sioux Falls can participate in. It does not cost a dime to participate in one of our parks, or very little in some of the recreational programs, $0 to maybe a nominal fee for some of the different programs that are involved. As a counselor, I was committed right from 7 years ago, from the time I started, to continue to support the parks and recreation system because it played such an important role in my life. But it is one of those parks and rec and the arts. It's something that attracts individuals to the city of Sioux Falls, and then it helps to retain individuals in city of Sioux Falls as well.
Sure. Now, the indoor pool was finally passed, and I think there was some concern that maybe people wouldn't utilize it, but that has been proved that it is a huge attraction for many families. When you're looking at new pools, do you think you'll do any more indoor, or will they almost be all outdoor, and will they look different than they do now?
One of the areas that is definitely lacking in pools, there's really a couple. Northwest and the Southwest are both areas. In fact, Councilor Neitzer and I worked on a Hayward Park plan recently where at least they're going to have a splash pad available. But individuals up in that area, and there are families that are challenged economically, and so the hardship of getting their children from that point to Drake Springs or Terrace Park, which would be the closest, that's hard. So it is important that we get something located, an outdoor, in my opinion, an outdoor pool in their area, as well as in the southwest part, especially with the community of Harrisburg growing the way it is. And maybe there's even some possibilities for cooperation between the two communities.
Sure. Okay, and then let's talk about transit. We talk about transportation, and now we need to figure out how to get people to their jobs. You know, that has been more of a struggle lately because the transit system does not go to huge parts of the outlying areas of Sioux Falls. What do you see as some of the priorities with the transit system?
Well, I think one of the things that we're looking at is with our trial, and we just voted this week to extend the trial and add the additional software to look at on-demand. It doesn't make sense to take large buses with a small amount of riders and being able to balance some of that, but to also get people to where they need to be in the shortest amount of time possible. And again, the reality is that it's people of lower economic ability that have to use the transit system. So making it as convenient as possible. The first set of results have been in, and we were updated a little bit, and there's some things that need to be improved. I think there's software is going to be improved, but it's also an education process for the riders to be able to do that. But we're going to have to expand into some of those places. We looked at numbers the other night for the Amazon location and the amount of roads that we're going to have to add, and the shortcuts that people will take when traffic backs up are going to create some safety issues that we're going to have to plan for and add that infrastructure. And that infrastructure is very expensive, where we can add more transit to get people to where they need to go. So we're working on it, and it's been a really high priority of this administration to find some of those solutions of, you know, whether it's a hub and a spoke or how those routes go so that we can get people where they want to go as fast as possible.
I played a role on the selection of the software company developing the on-demand transit system, and that was a very interesting process, to say the least, especially right at the get-go, the beginning of a pandemic. So it was challenging, and then to implement a pilot during a pandemic has been a challenge too. So it is necessary, it has become necessary to extend that project so that we can gather more data under hopefully normal conditions, even though we're still battling pandemic environment. However, it is important, in my opinion, that we expand the bus system so that it reaches into the southeast and the southwest and the different corners of the city, because that also impacts the paratransit system, the individuals that really rely on transportation to get to their jobs and to their churches and to their appointments. And so until we expand the overall system, the individuals that are most dependent on us for transportation, their transit system doesn't expand either.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the software. Is this how does software play a role? Do people call? Do they text? Do they get online to reserve a ride? How does that work exactly?
Since I played a role in it, I'll answer that too. They can call, and unfortunately there's still a higher number of calls that are being placed because technology is sometimes kind of challenging, or people have a little higher anxiety level over that. But it is easy as taking out your smartphone and pulling up the app and then actually scheduling a ride and knowing when that ride, within a 20-minute window, when that ride is going to be there to pick you up. So that's where I'm hopeful that, as Councilor Starr had stated, that we can start progressing from the fixed route system more to this on-demand system, which will give us savings that will enable us to expand the overall transportation system throughout the city.
And I think one of the keys with the software is the fact that unlike the on-demand, or unlike the fixed route system that just goes in the same route over and over, it's a software that is telling the driver the most efficient route to take given what requests are coming in, because you may have requests at different areas of the city and it's telling them go pick up this person and then go pick up this person and drop this person off. And so just how to do that the most efficiently to get people picked up and dropped off as quickly as possible in the most efficient way. So it's really, the software is a critical piece of that that's handling the scheduling and essentially the navigation and all of that. So,
are they using smaller buses to do the on-demand, or is it the big buses?
So right now they're using the same buses that we have been using, simply because this is a pilot, so we don't invest in equipment that maybe we're not going to use. But they are definitely looking at the possibility, if we were to move forward with this, maybe we do use smaller buses for the on-demand system, and we have 2 different fleets. So that's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
When we talk about transit, though, the thing that's the most expensive and probably the biggest challenge for our budget is the paratransit rides, and making sure that those folks can get where they need to go, because they are the most expensive rides to pay for, and it's making sure and being able to expand that, because as we see our community increase, we've got to find the savings to pass that on to make sure. There's a lot of anxiety for folks that need to be on time for appointments for work and different appointments, so we got to make sure that that works as well.
Okay. Well, we have lots more to talk about. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the discussion on the budget, the $654 million budget, as well as City Council priorities. We will be back in just a moment.
Hello, my name is Dr. Zuzelski with Falls Community Health, and I would like to talk to you about the COVID vaccine. The vaccine has been shown to be over 90% effective at decreasing symptoms and hospitalizations when it is successfully administered to the population. Both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines require 2 series of injections separated by 3 or 4 weeks, depending on which vaccine you receive. People at highest risk for having severe adverse reactions from the vaccine are those who have allergies to previous injectable vaccines. Most common adverse effects are pain at the injection site, as well as fever, body aches, and headaches. All vaccination sites will monitor you for 15 to 30 minutes after you have been vaccinated in order to make sure that you do not have any serious adverse reactions. For more information about the COVID vaccine, please go to covid.sd.gov.
Welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are having a roundtable discussion with City Councilors Greg Neitzert, Rick Kiley, and Pat Starr. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about some of the City Council priorities. Councilor Kiley, you wanted to talk about the butterfly house and the aquarium. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on over there.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be the lead sponsor on a project where I hope that we, the council, will appropriate at least up to $800,000 towards a large expansion that they have planned. They've already raised $4.2 million, but the Butterfly House is a not-for-profit organization. They rely totally on admission and sales from their gift shop. They do not get any funding from the city of Sioux Falls, yet the city of Sioux Falls greatly benefits what they bring. In fact, the estimated economic impact is $12.8 million, and out of that $12.8 million, $6.8 million of that is coming from out-of-towners. So it's a great draw. Earlier we were talking about amenities that will attract people to the city of Sioux Falls and help retain them. I think the Butterfly House is one of them, and they offer free field trips to over 3,000 K-12, K through 5th grade, kindergarten through 5th grade students every year. They have $3 admissions for families that qualify, and annual memberships too for qualifying families that are only $15. So it's something that brings a lot to the community, and so I believe it's a project that's worthy of the city of Sioux Falls assistance.
Great. And if you haven't been there, it is a great way to spend an afternoon, especially in the wintertime when it's cold out and it feels like you're in a tropical paradise a little bit while you're inside there.
Well, and that's a great point, because it is one of the few activities that we have that is 12 months out of the year here. So again, I think it's very worthy of our support.
Sure. Well, let's move on. We have the Senior Disabled Municipal Property Tax Refund. Who doesn't want a property tax refund? Let's talk a little bit about this. Councilor Neitzert and Councilor Starr, who wants to go first?
I'll lead off if you don't mind. One of the things that we're doing, while we're talking about council priorities, is there's really about 3 pots of money that have come together. It's our original CARES Act funding that we received from the federal government. It's the ARPA money that we're receiving now as that second round of stimulus money that the city has gotten. And then we have additional capital surplus money that we didn't use in last year's budget, in combination with some reserves and leftover sales tax money, because we cut back looking for a 20 or 25% drop during the pandemic. So we were looking at ways to cut back, and now those tax revenues have come in, so we're moving some of those projects forward. So this whole group of council priorities have really kind of focused around that. Where do we want to invest for the long term that make our community a better place to live, be that quality of life we talked about in the first segment. So one of the things that Councilor Sale and I have been talking about, we've looked back and forth at how do we keep elderly people in their homes? How do we get a rebate to people who are low income elderly, where it's a lot less expensive to stay in your home where people want to be, rather than going to assisted living or down that road of care that you would get outside of your home. So what we came up with was a way to rebate the city's portion of the sales tax for folks who are already part of a program that is an elderly tax freeze. So the county treasurer already has that application process. The state allows them. So it freezes your property valuation at when you were 65 years old. There are some requirements that are pretty strict to qualify for the program, but what we've done is set aside about $500,000 for the maximum of the program. But for folks who need to get their part, that might replace a sidewalk. It may do a home improvement, for a couple $100 that it saves from the city's part. Again, that allows you to stay in your home. So I don't know if Councilor Neitzert wants to do some of the numbers to get. A lot of people look to the elderly tax freeze program, and they have a considerable more income than what it takes to qualify, but the numbers are there.
Yeah, in fact, the assessor at Minnehaha County was just talking about this in a meeting and saying that really the state needs to look at that, because really it hasn't kept pace with inflation. So the numbers of the people who actually qualify is very, very low. When you look at, a single member of a household incomes less than $29,000, or multiple member households $36,000. That's not a lot. So there's a lot of people that are truly still on fixed incomes who don't qualify, and so this is something that we can do, to help people, as Councilor Starr said, to help keep them in their homes. And one of the things I love about this is one of the missions that we were supposed to be looking at with CARES Act money and money from the pandemic is helping the people the most impacted, and this is where we can help people. Quality of life is great, and these are great programs that will help everybody as well and improve quality of life, but getting to those populations that are the most impacted is really something we should do.
Do individuals have to apply for it, or are they already on the rolls because of their current status, with either being 65 or older and defined by the Social Security Act as being disabled?
What's going to be nice, and we tried to keep this as simple as possible without creating another form to fill out or another you missed the deadline type of things. What we'll be able to do is take the form that they've already filled out with either the Minnehaha County Treasurer or the Lincoln County Treasurer, and this is an addendum, and the city will mail them a check for their city portion of it. So keeping it as simple so that folks don't have to do that. So as long as you apply for the property tax freeze and you qualify for that part of it, then you'll qualify for this program, and it'll be an automatic thing is what our hope is. So again, keeping it as simple as possible. The qualification for the elderly tax freeze, it does adjust slightly every year, that they've included an escalator for income, but what it really does is that to qualify, you only have Social Security and maybe just a bit more of income, and so the average Social Security qualifies if you don't have any other income other than that. And that was one of the things we saw this year, that people had to take money out of their 401k, and it kicked them off of the assistance programs for some of those. So again, that's where we tried to keep it a little more simple.
Okay. And let's jump very quickly to the USD Discovery District. Let's talk a little bit about what that is and what's the priority there.
One of the things that we did, we put together at the end of Governor Dugard's position. Let me back up. 20 years ago, the state took some land, bought some land in northwest Sioux Falls to create a discovery district, a combination of USD, their research, the education component from USD is part of it. So what we're looking at doing is trying to attract jobs that pay a living wage, that require degrees and college educations, and to put that research, whether it's biotech, any type of technology and research, and to do that. So we're going to the council's setting aside $4 million to encourage that, and we're really at that point where we're bringing in other groups, the state, the schools. You're going to see some really cool things that happen. We have the research students. They need projects, they need companies, they need jobs.
Sure, and it's to keep our college graduates in South Dakota.
Absolutely,
as well.
and to attract college students and graduate students to do their research here in South Dakota.
Sure, and let's get to the fun part here, the skate park at Nelson Park. Councilor Kiley, this is something that you've been working on.
Yes, I was approached by Walter Ports, who's been a long time member of this community, actually went to school with my son Jason, and he's with the Sioux Falls Skate Park Association. They're already doing a lot. There's hours upon hours upon hours of volunteer time that they put in to the youth in our community. What's really been lacking is a truly professionally designed skate park, so we're hoping to leverage up to $800,000 that would help supplement money that they raise privately, and they had submitted an application to the Chamber Community Appeals, and that application was granted. So we're hoping that they will max out the private dollars, and then we can match our public dollars along with it. As I've already talked about the number of volunteers they have, but it's an event that is low cost to get into it. And if you look at the participants, there's a higher than normal percentage, or greater than normal percentage of students from lower income or even poverty levels, and that can participate in, because basically if you have a skateboard, you can ride, and it's something else there's gender equity within the activity too. And what better time to bring this forward but now, when for the first time ever it was an Olympic event here at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it was. Well, it looks like that's about all of our time, but if somebody would like to get a hold of any of our city councilors, they can reach you at siouxfalls.org, and you can get information on the budget that will be passed in the third week of September. So thank you all for joining us for Inside Town Hall. We'll see you next month.